Episode 285, Building Unshakable Trust in Yourself, with Brock Bumgarner.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with the coach? Here we go.
In this episode, Heather sits down with mental performance coach Brock Bumgarner to explore the science and psychology of confidence. Brock shares how his background in counseling evolved into performance coaching and explains why confidence is the number one predictor of success. Together, they discuss the difference between confidence and arrogance, how to bounce back from failure, why athletes and all of us need a growth mindset, and practical ways to develop resilience, emotional regulation, and faith in high-pressure situations. Whether you're an athlete, parent, performer, entrepreneur, or simply trying to navigate life's challenges, this episode offers powerful tools for building lasting confidence rooted in growth rather than outcomes. Please enjoy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast today. I am joined by Coach Brock Bumgarner and super excited to have him on. He has not been on with me before, so it's always fun to get to introduce somebody new to our community to you guys. So with that, Brock, do you mind giving us a little bit of an introduction, telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Of course. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, Heather. So my name's Brock. I am a mental performance coach. I am a credentialed, licensed counselor, but I have kind of broken away from traditional counseling to be a mental performance coach. And the reason for that is because I feel like my whole life I've been really into sports. I've been really into performance psychology. I love the idea of self-improvement and how you can become a better version of yourself by mastering your mind. And so I went into counseling, and as I went into the counseling field, I felt like therapy wasn't quite the right fit for me. And so I got my master's, but I've broken away now and am now trying to do more of this crossover of performance counseling, performance coaching. I've kind of found that my superpower is working with people who want to improve, who are driven, but don't really feel like counseling is the exact fit for them. I feel like have a good space for that, where I can take people and make them comfortable with that growth and having conversations in a way that feels exciting and progressive and doesn't have the stigma associated with therapy, I guess.
Yeah. That's so interesting to me. And to be fair, and to there is such a need for counseling out there, right? But there is a difference between counseling and coaching, and they both have their place. And I love that you are seeing that place for you, right? Like you get to decide what that space looks like for you as well. So I'm really excited for people to have access to you who bring so much to the table in that area. So it's awesome. I'm excited.
Thank you. Yeah.
Excited to have you. How exactly is what you do as a mental performance coach different than traditional therapy or coach and coaching, really, for that matter?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation anytime you talk about therapy and coaching, because it can look different and the same depending on the coach. And like you said, all of it is great. I think that where I am a little bit different is I rather than talking about the problems and emotions that you might discuss in therapy, I'm very focused on the performance side of things. I'm really into the performance science, what makes us perform at our best. And I like to approach the coaching relationship with the lens of how how do you want it to look? What do you want your performance to look like? And I can break it down into those performance skills. And I think that one of the things I love about performance psychology is it's applied to sports, but there are principles that are applied in everyday life too. And that's what I feel like I drill down with people is some of those basic skills. The ones I usually focus on, I think that performance comes down to anxiety, or it comes down to focus, emotional regulation, rest, motivation, and confidence. And confidence especially is a really big one that I work on with a lot of people. And like I said, you can work on those in sports and performance and high pressure situations, but you use those in everyday life too, to just be the best version of yourself. And so that's kind of the lens that I bring into my coaching conversations.
I like sports, to your point, is such a good analogy for life in general. My kids have all been athletes, and a couple of mine, I recognize that there were some skills that I was wanting them to learn, just in like emotional health skills that I wanted them to learn from somebody other than me, right? Because always like mom isn't always our favorite place to learn some things. And it was so easy for me to do it through the lens of coaching, because I was able to say, hey, I have a coach I would love for you to work with that might help you with your volleyball game or your basketball performance, right? And so for me, it's been a kind of an undercover way to teach my kids some things through the lens of coaching, because like you said, it transfers to life in general. It doesn't just stay on the court or a field. It carries over into real life skills.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. I think yeah, it's like being manipulative, but in a very nice and loving way. It's not a bad manipulation. But yeah, I agree that it's a much better situation. It's a much more natural situation to kind of teach some of those lessons. And I think that kind of goes to my point about therapy too, is that I feel like therapy, a lot of times people feel like they have to go to therapy. It's because there's a problem and they need to fix it. And it's funny how just changing the way you talk about it can make a difference for some people, and make it so it's an exciting conversation of something you're working on together, rather than a problem that you have to talk to your mom or your therapist about, right? So
Yes. Yes. It's not something to be solved. Like, they're not something to be solved. They're not a problem. It's just enhancing what's already there and helping them discover that. I love that. Thank you. And thank you for calling me out on manipulating.
that's okay. That's what psychology is sometimes, whether we
Yeah.
acknowledge what I think sometimes.
Yeah, no. Okay, so tell me what the biggest misconception people have about confidence and what it's actually built on. I think there's a lot of confidence plays into so many things, and I would love to hear what those misconceptions are that we have about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think confidence is huge. There's studies that I've seen that really are at the base of a lot of what I believe about performance coaching, that talks about how confidence is the number one predictor of performance. That um the if you can show up with confidence, then that is going to be a better indicator of you having a good performance than anything else you can possibly do, anything physical. And so the biggest misconception I see with confidence, the biggest struggle I see with confidence, I think, is that people put their confidence in outcomes rather than the process. I think that that's the biggest thing, the biggest mistake I see being made. And we think it's an interesting mindset kind of shift to have, but in sports and life, when lose our confidence, it's because we start thinking too far ahead. We think of that outcome. We think, okay, what's going to happen at the end of this game, at the end of this work day with this big high pressure situation I have coming up. And when we start to look too far in advance, we kind of lose control over the things that we can have control over in this moment. And if we can train ourselves to bring ourselves back to that present moment, that's that's always where we bring that confidence, where we show up more assertively and on top of things, and noticing our strengths and skills rather than the deficits that are required or that are there between now and what you're trying to get to?
So my lens from what I will what I'm bringing some perspective from here is I have, like I said, I have athletes. My kids have done sports through high school. I have a son who is just finishing up his college baseball career. And I think for me, watching people play baseball is it's a sports platform that just puts you're like on a microscope, right? Because everybody's just watching. All eyes are just on you as an individual. And because of that, I've witnessed so many baseball players. You can watch them as you watch them through a season. They start to they will underperform sometimes. They start to fall and lag, from what I know they're capable of, and I can see that they're losing trust in themselves. I would really be curious to know how you help people rebuild trust in themselves when you can see their confidence waning, when they're not performing the way that they know they're capable of and their coaches know they're capable of. What does that look like to help people rebuild that trust in themselves?
Yeah, I love the example of baseball because like one of the biggest stat in baseball is like the batting average, right?
Yes,
How
yes.
your percentage of hitting the ball when you get up to the plate. And so you're missing like pretty much anyone who plays baseball is going to miss more swings than they actually hit. And I think it's a really interesting psychological thing to say like how do you build confidence in yourself when you are having more losses than you are wins?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a great question, and it is very tricky to keep that trust in yourself, to build your confidence when it feels like the evidence is stacking against you that you keep missing the ball. And so
And
that's
there's evidence
where
everywhere, right? Like the evidence
there
are
is.
up there, stats for everybody to see, like all the things. It's like, ugh. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. And so I think it's a really cool example, and I think that goes back to that mindset shift of and it's a good example of like you can't put too much weight on the miss and label yourself because of that miss. You need to look at the process. You need to look at what has worked and how you can have faith in your ability. And this is how I probably would say is you want to have more confidence in your ability to grow rather than the outcomes that happen right in front of you. If you can put your confidence in growth and in your ability to grow and in your ability to learn, if you can say, okay, I got out this time, but what can I learn from this? How can I be a little bit better next time? Then you can always refocus and you can stay engaged and build that confidence while you're going. Whereas once again, if your confidence is just, okay, am I a good batter? Am I a good baseball player or not? That can be broken anytime you fail, which is inevitable in any sport in life in general. Whenever we label ourselves, we put ourselves in danger of that happening. And if we can anchor ourselves in growth and just trusting the process of growing, then we're going to be better off for it in the long run.
So I really appreciate that actually. Like the labels, we all give ourselves labels, right? Like I'm a mom, and I label myself with that. And so sometimes if I don't perform the way I want to as a mom, then it's failure, right? And to your point, there's failures all around us regardless of what we're doing or participating in, but it's the growth that comes in that process. Thank you for bringing that up. I think I'm looking at some notes here, and I know that it was discussed that you have 3 rules. What are
Yeah.
these 3 rules that apply here to building trust?
Yeah. So I think that there are 3 things that really I call my 3 rules for young athletes basically because it's especially present there. But once again, everyone faces this. And I think when you're struggling with confidence, it almost always comes down to one of these 3 things. And those are basically putting your faith in the outcome instead of the process.
Okay.
Like we explained, if you start thinking too far in advance, if you start worrying about the outcome, then your confidence goes down. Comparing yourself to others is a huge one. Whenever we compare, we lose our confidence. And then the third rule I have is that you need to make sure you put more stress on positive experiences than negative ones because we talked about evidence a minute ago, and we can find evidence for whatever we want to find evidence for out there, and our brains are wired to notice the negatives more than the positives. but that does not help us to actually perform at our best when we do this. And so that's kind of what I usually encourage athletes. Like if you're struggling with confidence, go through that checklist and you'll probably find that one of those is what you're struggling with or is causing that struggle.
So good. And I don't think there's anything that is more evident of that than when you're sitting at a baseball game and like a pitch is thrown and it's called a strike. And then the opposing team is like, there's no way that was a strike. Everybody's watching the same game, but everybody is just searching for evidence to prove what they want to see is true.
And it's interesting, and once again, I love sports for these examples because I think that so we all have a negativity bias. We are programmed to see negatives more than positives, and that especially comes out in emotional high pressure moments, and that's all that sports is. And so it just it's I think it's funny sometimes to think that this is a situation where we want to be as in control as we possibly can, and we want to have confidence and we want to have composure, and yet we're putting ourselves in these situations that are deliberately putting us into a spot where our brain wants to be negative. It's like fighting against us all the time.
Okay, so circling back to those 3 rules that you say that you suggest to younger athletes, but obviously apply to all of us. What changes do you typically see in athletes once they truly start living by those rules?
Yeah, I love that question. I think that confidence, what I see when people start applying those rules, when they start to build their confidence, the biggest thing is consistency. And what I mean by that is when people are struggling with their confidence, you see kind of what you described when watching baseball. Like you see the ups and downs. You can see in their face. You can tell when somebody's confident or not. And you can usually see the volatility of, man, I can tell like this is getting in their head. They just struck out for the 3rd time today. Like now they're up in a clutch moment. Are they going to be able to bring it back? And you can, like I said, you can tell usually if that confidence is there or not. And what happens when you can follow those 3 rules, when you can stay focused on yourself, on the process, and on growth, is basically you become unshakable. Like you bounce back faster. That's probably what I would say is the best thing. Is like they they mess up, but it doesn't affect them. It just brushes right off of them, and they bounce back, and they're ready for the next thing because they know that that failure is just a part of their growth process, and they can come back and continue to perform and focus on what they need to focus on the next time they're up to bat.
So I think the word that's coming to my mind is resilience, like which is a such a life skill in general, just learning to come back in moments that are difficult and rather than just crumbling or feeling like all has been lost.
Yeah, I love that. And I think resilience, it is a great word. And I think that personally, I think a lot of people view resilience as like bad things happen to me and
That's true.
I'm still alive afterwards, kind of. And
Yeah,
I feel like for me, it's a little bit more of like the label of the bad thing isn't there. Like it's just a thing. It's just a growth
gotcha.
opportunity. And I think that that's a big part of this confidence, this sport analogy is that we are embracing this high pressure situation. We're embracing in life these difficult challenges. We try to grow by pushing ourselves into these situations. And the resilience comes from knowing and having faith that I'm going to be okay, even if it's hard, even if I mess up, even if I strike out this time, that's not going to tear my confidence down or make me less of a person. It's just going to be a part of my journey and my growth process.
So it sounds to me like part of that confidence is having confidence that you're going to be able to take care of yourself emotionally as well, right? That it's not just confidence in, like you said, it's not just confidence in your performance, but it is confidence in so many things, and that emotional safety is huge, as for me at least.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that that is, like you said, that is huge. Like if you know that you can fail and recover from failing, like that's one of the best things you can have confidence in because then there is no failure when that's the case because you are always growing. I heard a quote that I really liked and I just heard it like last week and I've used it a whole bunch already. And it was something about how I think it was when experience is the goal, you can never fail. And I feel like that goes along with this, where it's like when and like you asked that question of what do I see in people when they follow those rules when their confidence is building? And it's like they don't come in and they're not like scared anymore. They're not like, "Oh crap, I messed up. I lost all that traction that we just made. I had a bad game. It's over. Like what if I can't get my mojo back?" It's like, "Yeah, I had a rough game, but I know what to do next time and I've recovered before. I've had bad games and then come back and had good games before. I've struck out and come back and figured out, okay, this is how this pitcher likes to throw the ball, and I've hit a home run the next time." And so when you learn how to bounce back and have confidence in bouncing back rather than being a success right from the beginning, like there's nothing you can't keep on coming back and doing
Yeah.
and nothing that can keep you from growing, right?
Yeah, for sure. In my life, I see that piece like when I have noticed that I have quote unquote failed in something, I am like I just noticed that I am really good at spiraling with myself, like, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that." There's shame, there's guilt, there's all those things, and so I'm starting to recognize that it's not the failure to your like, just to put this specifically here, it's not necessarily the failure or the thing that didn't go right. It's how I treat myself when that happens, and that's where the unsafe feeling for me comes from, is that I know I'm not going to be emotionally kind to myself, and I hate that more than I hate the actual thing that I think that I failed at, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that makes total sense. And yeah, it's once again just an interesting mindset piece. Yeah, I had a really good conversation with somebody just the other day, a young athlete, and compared it basically to repentance. Somebody said that God cares a lot more about what you do right after the mistake than the mistake itself. And I feel like that's kind of the same principle of you're going to make mistakes. You're not expected to be perfect. What matters most is how you respond right after that mistake. And I liked that
Yeah.
analogy a
Yeah,
lot
so
when we
good.
relate it to the gospel sense.
Okay, so since you brought religion, like you brought repentance in a little bit, I have another question for you in regards to things that we think about as being religious. In our church, we do talk a lot about faith over fear. And I want to know how someone can do that in high pressure situations. Like, what does that look like practically in a high pressure situation?
Yeah. What does what does practicing faith over fear look like in those high pressure situations?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love to one of my favorite things about learning about performance psychology is applying it to the gospel and seeing how many ways God created our brains and he made it so they're efficient in a certain way and a lot of times there are parallels to the gospel and I think that confidence to me, the parallel to confidence is oftentimes faith. And I think that fear is once again our natural response to any high pressure situation. And so our body wants to start fighting against us and wants to start telling us we're in danger. And we can have that faith by putting our faith in the process once again, putting ourselves in the mindset of how can I grow from this situation? But I also think that we can practice faith by actually tracking what we're saying to ourselves in those situations as well. Self-talk is a huge part of confidence. And I think that first of all, we need to be aware of what we're saying when we have those high pressure moments. If we are telling ourselves once again, if we're looking for the negatives, if we're looking for reasons we're going to fail, then that is likely going to happen. But if we can bring our faith in, okay, I have put in the work. I know how to handle this situation. I know God will help me handle this situation. Um, and we are intentional with how we talk to ourselves in those moments, then we're going to be able to handle those more efficiently. And I would even say that there's two moments of self-talk that I think are most important. there's right before it happens. Once again, this is the mantras, the power statements of, okay, I'm going into the performance and I'm telling myself, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And I also like to encourage people to have a bounce back script, which is the mantra for after you mess up, because it's going to happen. And being able to remind yourself, okay, I can grow from this, I can grow from this, I can grow from this. So self-talk and like I said, in those two ways, those are the two things that I usually encourage people to practice to help build their faith or confidence in those high pressure moments.
Okay, I think also moms need to have those mantras. I'm gonna be selfish for a minute, like moms sitting there watching their kids. I need one for when my kid's walking up to bat and when my kid has struck out or whatever,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I have a background in corporate wellness and I've worked with a lot of moms, and yes, moms need all the tools too. Moms are harder on themselves than they should be when they are so great, whether it's watching their kids or just them parenting themselves. Like, we all need to know, like, we can bounce back from this. It's going to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have said to a couple people lately, nothing has given me more opportunity to practice regulating my nervous system than the college baseball field. So,
I believe it. Yeah. I mean, once again, sports are weird like that. If you want to really practice your emotional regulation, Um, moms that are watching, I wouldn't recommend telling your husbands to do this because it'll probably make them mad to try and do this. But you can try regulating your emotions while watching sports, and it's good practice for real life, because that's when we all yell and swear the most, right? Get upset watching the TV or watching our kids play sports. So
yeah.
definitely good practice, not just for the people playing, but those watching too.
Yeah, most definitely. Okay, so all right, here's another one. This is a something that I have thought a lot about personally, but we have like this concern sometimes about raising confidence kids without tipping that into arrogance, right? And in fact, I was laughing. So my son, I've got 3 daughters, and my girls always joke with him. They're like, you wouldn't have near the confidence you had without us as sisters, because they are like queens of like raising, like building his confidence, whether he recognizes it or not. But there is this line, like I'm always worried. There's this line between confidence and arrogance, I feel like. And so how do you teach athletes to develop this deep confidence, but also really remain grounded at the same time?
Yeah, this is something I've asked myself a ton as I've kind of grown in this field, and because I was the same way when I was a young athlete. I honestly didn't even differentiate sometimes between confidence and arrogance, and I just
Yeah.
assumed, and part of that was because I struggled with confidence myself, and I saw other people who were very confident, and many of them probably did go over the line to arrogant. But I was like, how do you basically, I felt like confidence and humility were two opposite ends of the spectrum. Like you kind of said, like, you cross that line, and when you cross that line, you were no longer humble and you were confident or arrogant. I've learned that that's not the case, that confidence and humility are two separate skills, and you can have both of them at the same time. And you can have both of them at the same time at a very high level. And so I think as parents, that's what I would say, is to separate those and to make sure you and your kids know that you can have both. You can build up your kid as much as you possibly can and help them to believe in the things that they can do. And you can also tell them that there's always more to learn, and there's always that God is always bigger than them, that God's plan is always bigger than them, that they're going to fail, and that they need to be able to learn from those failures. And so yeah, I think recognizing and separating those two things, humility and confidence. As long as you have humility, I don't think that you will cross over into that arrogance. I love gospel examples of that as well. I feel like of like different scripture stories, like Nephi, um, obviously had all the confidence in the world to build a boat, uh, which he didn't have a skill for, but he had all that confidence, and he was not arrogant whatsoever. I wouldn't say, like, that's not a word you would ever use to describe him. And I think there's something about grounding that confidence in God as well as grounding it in growth that can allow you to always always build the confidence and the humility simultaneously, I guess.
So good. I love it. Okay, Brock. I feel like I've made this just as much about me as anybody else here, but thank you. This has been really helpful for me
No, thank you. I
as an
love talking.
individual. I think it's fantastic. Before we sign off here, can you share with people how they can connect with you?
Yes. So you can connect with me on Instagram at the leading edge coaching. That's my handle on Instagram. My website is theleadingedgecoaching.com, and you can also find me on the LDS Life Coach directory. So
Well, we will
yeah.
link to all those things in the show notes. I am really excited for people to hear this. As I said before, like coaching has been one of those ways that I help my kids learn some skills. And though it was things I wanted them to learn and Brock like helped me see maybe that there was a little bit of manipulation there, I really do feel like coaching through this lens is so helpful for so many people, not just in their sport, but it just translates into life in general. So I think this lens, coaching through this lens as like a performance is gold when it comes to our youth and people
Yeah.
that are doing things like that.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, I agree. I think that I like I said at the beginning, I feel like my strength is relating to some of those, whether it's youth that are in sports or even just other adults who are into sports and performance. They don't want to go through therapy, which once again, therapy is great, but
Yeah.
it's not for everybody. And I think that there is a space in coaching and the mental performance side that it's just a different lens that I think is a good
Yeah.
fit for certain people. So.
Let me ask you something really quick as I'm thinking about this. Does this same thing translate? Like we talked obviously today about sports most specifically, but what about people who are like performing at high levels, meaning like either in theater or piano or music or voice? Like obviously these same things still translate there. Do you work with those people as well? Or are you more specifically athletics?
I love basketball and football, and but I've had a lot of fun with some of the random conversations I had, like a rock climber, and we talked about growth and how we focus on. He was focusing on on the outcomes and like how do I get to the top of the cliff right away, and it's like no, you have to focus on the one hand hold at a time, and just coming up with these different
Right.
analogies. And yeah, it applies to all different levels. I also work with I've worked a lot with salesmen
Okay.
and the high pressure performance mindset of sales. It's kind of like baseball, where you have more failures than you do successes, and keeping your confidence, keeping motivated in the midst of all that can be difficult. So yeah, it applies to all situations for sure. Anyone who is struggling with confidence, burnout, motivation, focus, like you said, it's pretty universal.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are feeling those things in today's world, I feel like.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for this conversation. I'm excited for the listeners to get to hear this as well. And we will link to all these things in the show notes. And we will see, hopefully, our listeners will be here with us again next week as well as we have more great things to share. So thanks, everybody.
Yes.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.